it was in the light of all these shootings. We had the Buffalo shooting, had the Valde shooting. We had all this stuff that's happening with our kids.
Yeah.
Being in Northern Virginia area, seeing what's happening in, say, Loudoun County, which has been uh, in the news but not really put out there, with the different teaching that's going out there, the just what's happening to our kids. And when seeing this, I teach and instruct and consult for security. And when I look at things, it's never the tool or the action. There's things that led to that point in time. And so when I try to write on this, I try to dive into, okay, let's take away these actions that are happening, and let's dive into what led our kids, these young adults, to that
How
moment in
did they
time
get there?
where they decide to
Yeah.
make this action, make this decision. And what can we do to stop these things along the way? I say this: if you have an incident happens, you're catching the 1%, the last 1%. That means you missed 99% of the signs leading up to this
Yeah. By the
incident.
time it gets there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, if I could just weigh in on that. So, my background's in neuroscience, and I've been basically studying human behavior pretty much all my life, but in all seriousness for probably 20 plus years. And I use it in my coaching and consulting. The biggest thing that I think every parent needs, maybe a class before they become a parent, to take a class in how the mind is formed
Hmm.
in a child, and the plasticity of the reception of what's taught to them through what they see. It's not even so much what you say to them, it's what they see in their environment around them. And it's who you're being as a parent through the way you live your life that is
Of
actually
course.
programming the child. So 0 to 7 are the imprint years. That child is like clay. You're molding, we as a parent, we're molding our children psyche
Exactly.
into who they'll become, how they'll see themselves, and how they'll see themselves in the world between 0 and 7. So if we yell at them, if we fight with our partners, if we talk badly to ourselves about ourselves,
Hmm.
if we call them an idiot or stupid, if we emotionally hold back, like all this stuff adds up over
Yes.
time, and it's creating, it's the foundation for an adult. And then 7 to 14 are the modeling years. I did a project for the city of Long Beach, and
Hmm.
one of the things we worked on was they had this at risk youth project. It was through the mayor's office. And so we liaised a lot with the Long Beach Police Department, which is what really got me interested in law enforcement from um, a civilian, a citizen perspective. And, these kids were doomed because they were considered to be already unhelpable, or I
Yeah.
can't find the word right now. But 7 to 14 are the modeling years, so your kid's going to model somebody. Is it going to
Yes.
be the gangbanger? Is it going to be the drunk uncle? Is it going to be you, mom and dad, fighting with each other? Or is it going to be a parenting system that is about values, goals, communication, expressing love, having boundaries? You know, I could go on and on about this all day, but
No,
that's
I'm
where it
yeah,
starts.
I'm in agreement. I had the honor to adopt a young
Mm.
man when he was 14. He was in the system since he was 7. Bounced from house to house, foster home. And when I first got with him as a foster parent, he was very apprehensive of adults.
I'm sure.
He was actually abused as a young age, and but he was a very. It took me a while. It took me a while to break that down to really understand. A lot of patience, but
Sure.
at the end of the day, he's very successful. He's about to join the military,
Oh my God.
and I'm very proud of him too. And he could have been one of those statistics, one of those kids that just went into gangs. And that's another thing that we don't talk about. We don't talk about enough. How many kids, young kids, aside from these mass shootings are happening, but how many of these young kids are just being murdered in these inner cities?
Yeah.
And we don't keep track. We don't do anything about that. We want to do so much for mass shootings as horrible those are, which I never wanted any one of those to happen. And that's why I work in security to protect these schools.
Sure.
But the reality is hundreds of thousands of kids are being murdered every day, young men, every day. And yet we show nothing for that. We do nothing towards that. We get the media out here, celebrities that want to push certain agendas when these things happen, but yet they turn a blind eye on trying to help these kids out, try to develop these programs, trying to go there and donate to these programs, donate your time or bring awareness to them.
Something.
Yeah, but they do nothing because it's all about an agenda and not really helping kids out. And that's to me the hardest thing for me to live with.
I'm sure. And, bless your heart for taking on the responsibility of another human being that really is up against it based on their
Mhm.
past. Like going through, the repatterning process as his father,
Yeah,
it takes some real dedication because when a child is abused, and there's all kinds of abuse, but it really does have a long-standing effect on that child's relationship with themselves, that it takes a lot of TLC
it,
and
it does.
to get past that. I have a
And
client that they have a 10-year-old foster son, and the first 3 years were just, it turned the whole house upside down
yeah,
from,
yeah.
yeah, just emotional outbursts and fear and lack of trust and just all sorts of real sensitive areas that needed to be. And the only thing that they could do to overcome that and to help him repattern and have a sense of this is going to be okay was through consistencies. You just have to be in for the long haul, right?
Yeah, you definitely do. And when I went through the whole program, I didn't know anything. I was already a father, and you don't get any manuals when you become a parent.
I know.
Nobody knows anything. I used whatever I learned for myself being in the military and discipline and that kind of stuff. But these programs, people are sitting there thinking like, how can I do that? They walk you through. There's classes they put you through to be a
Right.
foster parent. They go through, and then you have a full resource of uh, psychologists and counselors that are there to help you, not
Sure.
just give you information on strategies on how to help the child out, but also they talk to you about how are you doing when you're dealing with all this additional stress to keep you in
Yeah.
the game, to keep you focused on what you're doing. There's a lot of resources out there not tapped in, not talked about. We have kids that are in the system that end up getting their influence from gangs, from social media, um, and then what do we expect the outcome to be when we have no parental guidance there? And parental guidance to me, like I said, I was not his father. I'm his father now. I adopted him, but I wasn't his father. I was a mentor first and foremost,
Sure.
and then that father connection developed from being that mentor, and
Do you
that's
think
all
it
we
was
got. Yeah.
maybe easier going in as a mentor where he doesn't have his guard up so much, that you're there to actually be a friend and someone to help him along instead of trying to immediately step into fatherhood shoes?
Yeah, I mean that helped out a lot. Being a mentor first,
Sure.
because you
Build
you
trust.
gain that trust. That trust
Yeah.
is huge, especially
Yeah.
for a child that has been pushed aside, and then also in the psyche of the child. they're developing negative thoughts about themselves. Why am I always being pushed aside? Why does no one
Yeah.
care about me? And those are the worst things. I tell a lot of people that every single child that's born is a masterpiece.
Yes.
Just like you use the clay, I use a painting, a white, it's a
Like an empty
beautiful, it's
canvas.
an empty canvas of whiteness.
Yeah.
And every stroke is something we're putting into that child. And we can make a
Yeah.
beautiful masterpiece, or we could make it into the most horrendous artwork out there.
Yeah.
And it's not that child's fault. It's what that child's been exposed to.
Right.
So whatever that child takes in, he's going to come right back out. And so it's not about looking at, the actions of what they did. It's looking at what led that child
What's the root
to that point.
cause?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And our society, we want quick fix, but don't want to go to the root cause. And the root cause, honestly, is what we're teaching our kids. It's how we
It
take care
is.
of our kids. That's the root cause of everything.
And it's I believe that there's been sort of like over a period of, say, years or decades, um, there's been a shift in how our children are exposed to content that can lead them down a very dark path. It can really, confuse them. For even just with video games, it I remember when they first became very popular, it started to shift how a child was able to pay attention in other activities when
Hmm.
they didn't have the stimulation that came from the video game. And I'm not suggesting video games are bad, but we have to realize that the mind is like a sponge, even as an adult. It, well, let me just back up and say this for you guys watching. Go back into my YouTube channel. I did a whole program on the science of propaganda, and I broke down in that show how easy it is to program mass amounts of people, millions and billions of people, through the media, because we live our life through our senses: what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch,
Hmm.
what we feel, both tactile and intuitively, and then our self talk. That's how we experience all of life. So,
Yeah.
whatever's coming at us, through social media, through our phones, through our tablets, through our computers, through conversation, we're eavesdropping on that subconsciously 24/7. That's having a influence on our relationship to the world. And so we form these thought patterns. And when you think a thought pattern enough, over and over and over in repetition, it becomes a belief. And
Hmm.
I really believe that this is contributing to what's going on with our youth. And when the parents are confused, then the kid is definitely, unless the kid is, beyond their years and maturity, and their, which happens a lot, where the kid is parenting the parent because the
Oh, of
parent
course. Yep.
is emotionally, still like 12 years old. Um, but all of this stuff has an impact where we're trying to normalize things in the world now that, in my opinion, should be grounds for imprisonment. So we're really we're really messing with the future psychology of these 5 and 10 and 2-year olds or whatever, of who they're going to be as an adult.
No, I totally agree. Social media, the way it's pushed out there, the lack of monitoring from parents, from everything on what's being the contents put out there. When kids are going out there, young adults or whoever, and doing a 15 minutes of fame or 15 seconds of fame. I'm sorry about that. Um, others want to mimic those things,
Sure.
and it's just promoting that kind of stuff. When we're seeing things out there that kids are right away putting out their cameras on their phone to videotape instead of trying to help out people, but they
Instead of
want
engaging.
exactly. It's it's how many hits I get on my social media. That's where it's become. How many
Yeah.
followers do I get on my social media? And to me, there's not enough good context that are coming out. It's more of, you know, see what I have, see what I'm doing type of
Yeah.
stuff. Vice is see what I'm doing for others. How am I helping others? How am I bringing light to social issues that are truly social issues and not just, political footballs that are going out there? Bringing light to what's happening in these areas in Chicago, in Baltimore, in DC, in New York, about the crime rise, about the kids that are just playing the punch out games. This is
Right.
not something that we should be advertising. And for me, I believe that if social media really wants to be part of the solution, not the problem, they need to take those things and they need to pull them off. They need
Yes.
to they need to regulate those things that are affecting our kids and get away from trying to regulate all the other stuff. You know, try to get away from all the political stuff that you're trying to regulate, and really go after the horrors that are being put out there. Seeing teens punching elderly
I
people as if it's all
know.
right.
Yeah, it just desensitizes um, humanity to this being an okay thing on so many levels. So, first of all, it's okay to do it. Secondly, it's
Hmm.
okay to stand by and film it. Thirdly, it's okay to broadcast it. And fourthly, it's okay to watch it. I mean, every layer of that is a
Yeah,
desensitization of our humanity where we love and protect each other.
I agree. I agree. And what you're doing is we're teaching kids through social media. And how many of these kids don't have parents that are involved? How many of these kids are learning life choices through what
Right.
they're seeing on TV? And then
If
you
that's
want,
okay, then.
it's completely okay. But we gotta look at the context of what we're putting out there. The video games, uh, I played video games as a kid.
Sure.
And growing up, I saw Grand Theft Auto came out, and I was thought, oh, this is pretty interesting. But I was already an adult when I started touching those games, and now these kids are, you know, they're 12 years old playing Grand Theft Auto and thinking that is
But that's cool.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And granted, you got to be, I believe you still have to be 18 and older to buy those games, but it's not regulated. They could get, and their parents are buying the games and saying, okay, here you go, take this game because this will occupy your time and you'll
Keep you
leave
out
me
of my
alone.
hair.
And that is the wrong thing to do. And that's what they're taking in. They're taking that negative stuff in, and of course, they're gonna think it's all right.
Yeah, we've kind of spun out of control where, and it's a slippery slope because once you start, um, lifestyle, the cost of living, needing to have two incomes to make that work,
Yeah.
um, and then nobody's home with the kids, so now it's who's doing the babysitting? Is it the
Hmm.
television? Is it the nanny? If you have that means, and we could probably find something wrong with all of it, but
Yeah.
what's the solution?
I mean, the solution is just try to be involved. I mean, I had to deal with the same thing. Two income family, working, me being in the agency.
Yeah,
Um, but what I did was I started carving out time, and it started around the family table, around dinner.
nice.
That's the time where hey, all your kids have to eat at some time, right? Right.
Then let's
So
all eat together. That's what you're saying.
exactly, and
Make it an absolute. Got to be there.
we prepared a meal together. So I did a lot of the cooking,
Cool.
and so my kids would help out when they wanted to, but they weren't required to. But they knew that when dinner was done or was about to get done, that they had to set the table. And
Yeah.
part of it was during dinner time there would be no electronics. So you had your time all the way to this point, and no electronics. The key thing for this is I had to abide by that. Like that is a
Sure.
rule the adults have to
Yeah.
had to abide by.
Set the example.
Exactly. And my kids were very apprehensive at first. They're like, really, we got to do this. And we talked, made jokes. And after, at the end, we did an hour of family time. It could be a board
Nice.
game, it could be anything. So this really took up 2 hours of the time of the night. And we did it at least 5 days out of the week.
Good.
And my kids were very apprehensive. They're like, oh, I really don't want to do this. But they got into that routine. And then they'll invite their friends. And I remember my daughter
Yeah.
Samantha saying, hey, my dad's kind of weird with this. It's kind of stupid. We do this thing, we have dinner together, no electronics, and then we do family time. And rotates who gets to choose. It may be a board game, it may be we watch a movie together, we play a video game all together, like a family game. Uh and one of the things I got from my daughter was she told me her friends were amazed. They're
I
like,
bet.
you guys do that because when they start experiencing it, their friends would come over there and start experiencing it. It was something foreign to them. And
Hmm.
how much time did that take me? We're gonna eat dinner anyways.
Yeah.
It took 2 hours out of the night that I required. So if you're watching a movie for an hour, after an hour, if you want to go back to your room, you're done. Go back to your room. But it was that engagement, that laughter, and then it creates a bigger bond. It creates anticipation.
Yeah. It
Then my
creates a relationship, Anthony.
Exactly. And then my kids started engaging on what they wanted for dinner and they're getting excited and they'll invite their friends over and then we'll play games. And I called every game we played, daddy wins because I won in every game. That's how I taught my kids that, hey, we come to play a game, we're going to play, we're going to have fun, and there will be a winner at the end of this board game, card game, or something like that. I
Sure.
said to them, hey, that's life. Um, but it was exciting. It created routine for them. And I started doing that when they were already teenagers, after all my traveling overseas. But there's still time to do it. It's not
Sure.
like, oh, my kids
It's
are so
never too
old.
late.
It's never too late. And my kids were 14 and 15 doing this. And then when my adopted son came into the mix, it was something new to him, and he loved it because he'd never had anything like that. He's always had eat
Yeah.
by yourself, eat fast, but there was not that real family engagement. And I think that's the essence of what our country's lost. I mean, if we go back to the foundation of family time, even if you're a single parent,
Yeah.
single dad or a single mom, that family time is very important for the structure of that child. And it could make a difference between that child becoming a very caring and loving adult and then taking those
Yes.
good values to their kids, or that child being very secluded and not wanting to talk or open up.
Yeah.
It helped my family out tremendously.
Yeah. Well, it creates a healing, creates a bonding. You have something in common.
Yes.
Um, you're doing activities together. And, food prep is a way of nurturing. It's not just the nutrients in the food that is nourishing, it's going through the effort of preparing a meal together really does foster a connection with people. It's powerful, breaking bread, right?
Yeah. I mean, through the test of time. I mean, if you look at the concept of that, it's breaking bread, sitting down together in friendship and harmony. And it's just bringing that back. It's such a simple thing to do, but we move so fast and we don't have time. We may be tired from work, like, I don't have time for my kids. Here, let me
Don't
just heat
have them
something
then.
up. And then, yeah, exactly. Let me heat something up and go eat this. But it actually helped me out, helped me unwind, helped me disconnect from all the stress I was dealing with. It helped me come back down to reality of what was important.
Because you're developing another side of who you are as a human being. And, this is probably something that's worth having a conversation around is as a human being that we have many aspects to who we are. Whether we're a person first, a man or a woman, we're maybe a husband or a wife, maybe a parent, maybe not. And then what are our other things? Our business, our career, our friends. our hobbies, maybe we're athletic, there's so many different aspects to who we are as a human being. To just go through life, and I just had this conversation before the show. I was going through an assessment with a client that came through one of my leadership retreats in May, and he's just so close to really succeeding at a higher level in his life, but he's in fear because the real estate market's a little wonky
Mhm.
right now. And so he thinks that he can never take a break, that he has to work all the time, and or it's all going to fall apart. And I'm looking at his assessment, and I'm saying, listen, there's other parts of your life. Like if you stop white knuckling it for an hour or two a day and go and experience another part of you,
Mhm.
whether that's your friends, your family, whatever, then the business part will come along even quicker because you've stopped white knuckling it. And that's
Exactly.
essentially what you're saying. It's like when I started to engage these other elements of who I am and have a relationship with my kids and my family, doing things together, then everything shifted.
Yeah, it definitely does. And you know what? When I actually came to that point in my life where I was trying to reevaluate a lot of things, going to the government, from the military to the Secret Service, to the CIA, it's go, go, go. And it's
Sure.
mission driven, and you get a sense of pride of what you're doing.
Hmm.
But I got to a point in my life to where I reevaluated a lot of things. And at the end of the day, what do I want to be defined as? Do I want to be defined by my job that could come and go at any time? Or do I want to be defined as a human, as a father, as giving to others? And that's what started my push, moving from the government, moving to civilian sector, and really now start seeing things um, in a different light and where I can help out others.
Sure.
And for me, if I could help impact one life, and that life becomes successful, goes out there and pays it forward to help out another life, it means the world to me. And I think
Yeah.
right now we deal with a society that's just like your client, white knuckling it, so worried about the little things that at the end of the day really doesn't matter. To me, how much money is enough money? How much success is enough success? How much of a public name do you want to be categorized with achievements in the business realm, or what kind of car you drove? Yeah, how much is enough? There's got to be that balance. I think our society's really lost that balance between the two. And I think for
For sure.
myself, when I came back to realization, I realized that at the end of the day, the people that love me are going to be at my bedside when I take my last breaths on this earth. It's not going to be the government. It's not going to be Secret Service. It's not going to be CIA. None of those people are ever going to be. Nobody on social media is going to be there. It's going to be my kids. It's going to be my loved ones. It's going to be the foundation of family that I established.
Sure.
And that's what means everything to me.
You know, I've been traveling across the country on a speaking tour since the end of May, and living in different states for 2, 3 weeks at a time. And so I'm kind of doing a social experiment,
Mhm.
just to kind of observe how people are in different areas in terms of their sociability. And it's fascinating to me to see how, in some places, people are more shy.
Yeah.
Like they'll look at you, but they won't say anything. But if you open your mouth and say something, you can't stop them from talking. They just like you know you open the floodgates. And then other places, people just kind of look at you weird, like, why are you talking to me? And then there's a few places I've been to where people wave at you. They're driving down the street and they wave at you, and I'm like all day long waving at people. But it's just a lot of fun to observe how our environments have an impact on us.
Oh, yeah. It
And
has huge.
yeah, because where you are, we become our environment, and we sometimes we don't even realize it. And I guess
Very,
that's really
yeah.
what we're saying here, right?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I travel between DC and New York, so I stay in New York a lot. And not saying anything about New Yorkers, but they're very, everything's fast
Let's
and
go.
everything's a go.
Yeah.
And if you stop and hold a door for them, they look at you kind of sideways, like, what's your angle?
Yeah.
You know, they, they move fast. If you're driving 40 miles an hour and the sign says 40 miles an hour, they're honking at you.
You're
They're
going
flashing their beams. You're
slow.
going
I know.
slow
I know.
because everything's a rush, rush, rush. And then you get to other areas I've been to, just like yourself, where everything's so slow. I grew up in San Diego, where
Okay.
everything it's slow. Their time is by the suns. Is the sun up? Then it's good. We could go to the beach. The sun's down. Okay, time to leave. Go home.
Yeah.
There wasn't really that stress of I got to get somewhere fast.
Yeah.
And so I'm with you. I see it all the time. The difference between the two, the different environments, and not saying that the New York way is a wrong way. I'm not saying that
Right.
to all my New York friends out here that I have.
Still love you.
Guys, I love you guys to death. You know, don't yell at me tomorrow or anything. But I tell them also, you guys are kind of like fast,
Like, slow it down for a
like
minute.
slow it down for a minute. But then, I get the other side. I go to some places down in Southern Virginia where it's really
Yeah.
slow and there is
Yeah.
no time. You go trying to check out, and the two people in front, the cashier and the person, paying for their stuff, is having a 15-minute conversation, you
Yep.
know.
I've
But you
seen
just,
that too.
yeah, you gotta. I appreciate all of it. I
Sure.
understand, but to me, there's got to be a balance. Hey, the 15-minute conversation a little too
You got to
long,
get something done today. Yeah.
but then the rush, rush, rush. Hey, you're missing life. You're going so fast that you're missing life and the
Right.
beauty of what's around you. So I try to strive for that balance, that in between, where I do have my priorities. There's things I got to get done, but when I don't need to rush anywhere, I'm driving 40 miles an hour. Speed limit says 40. I'm doing 40 because I don't need to get somewhere fast.
Well, I think, some self awareness around what's causing us or driving our behavior is kind of useful, because I going to other states where things move a little slower, I caught myself just being in that old pattern of,
Yeah,
like, I wasn't honking at anyone, but as soon as they were out of the way, I was gone, right?
yeah,
And then I had to check myself and say, like, girl, what's up? It's, do you really need to be doing this at this speed? So, um, an appreciation, a self awareness for, first of
hmm,
all, for what's really driving us to behave the way we do. 100% of the time, that'll change everything. And
yes,
then some appreciation for, like, what's around you. Like, just look up at the sky and just say thank you for the clouds or the blue
hmm,
sky. Just keep it simple.
yes. And that's what's pushed out to your kids too. If you're rushing, 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 the effect that you're having on your kids with that, you're rushing through dinner, you're rushing through life. You're just rushing through the day to get to bed, to wake up, to do the exact same thing tomorrow and rush right
Yeah.
through. And not saying that you're a bad parent, not saying that you don't love your kids, but because you set yourself in such a routine that you can't stop and slow down, it's having an effect on your kids, you
Yeah, it
know.
sure does.
And then on the flip side, if you're just slow with everything, no priorities and everything, then kids are really not being brought up in a structure. There's got to be some sort of structure,
Yeah.
time limits on certain things. If they're just very lackadaisical going through life, it's going to come out on the other end with those kids. And so I think there's a balance. There's a balance that needs to be had. But it's kind of looking at the environment, kind of looking at what you're dealing with, the environment you're in, and saying, okay, I don't want to be a product of my environment.
Exactly. And you don't have to be. See, therein lies the rub right there.
Yes.
Nobody has to be a product of their environment.
No.
And whatever happens to someone as a child, and this is the best part, whatever happens to anyone as a child that may be in a sense of abandonment or abuse or anything that's negative, that's that can become an isolated emotional response that you don't have to drag through the rest of your life.
Yes. Yes.
Because, there's, right? Because there's, like, first of all, there's what happens to us as children. And then, secondly, there's the emotional component of how we take that in and allow that to create our reality. And then the third component of that is whether we continue to beat the drum of that as an adult.
Hmm.
And that's where our power drains, because we can heal anything. We are designed to heal any aspect of ourselves, from a cut finger to a broken bone, a broken heart, to the little child in us that got beaten down or ignored. We can heal it all. So no one needs to remain powerless and a victim as an adult. And if you choose to keep beating the drum of that stuff and dragging it forward, then your life will reflect that back to you, and
Yeah.
you'll be unhappy. And
Yes.
man, life's too short to be
I
unhappy.
and what I tell a lot of people when I talk about that kind of stuff is, as we're growing up, and I kind of use the image of a vehicle towing, you know, um, with a tow bed on the back, right?
Sure.
And you got that trailer, and through your life, things are going to pop in there, negative stuff, positive
Yeah.
stuff, right? And the negative stuff is what you're going to drag going forward. And but you have the power to pull those negative things out. You have the power to change the prism and change the configuration of that trailer, so you're not dragging that through
Right.
life. And so, why would you want to
To
drag
change
through
your
negative
focus.
stuff?
I know.
Change the negative stuff. Hate is a four-letter word. So is love. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the same thing. What it is changing the way you view things in life, instead of a half full, half empty type of thing.
Yeah.
You're
It's
you're
true.
you're you're making a positive change in there, and that ties in with kids. Showing them that they can make a positive change. That the environment they grew up in, they're not a product of an environment they grew up in. They're a product of their own self worth,
Yeah.
and nobody is going to give you that self worth except yourself.
That's right.
And words that people put or told towards you only have power is if you put the power
Yep.
in those words. So if someone
Yeah.
says they hate you, it's a four-letter word. If I don't take that hate and I say, okay, well, you may hate me, but I still have love towards you, then you
That's right.
tip all the power away from those words. And now you turn that into a positive.
Yeah.
And so, with my kids, especially with my adopted son, it was trying to take those words, those feelings and everything, and replace them with positive things. To say, yeah,
Yes.
you did not have the best growing up. You were put
Yeah.
in a bad
Acknowledge that.
situation.
Hmm.
But there's going to be obstacles in the world, and you can either face the obstacles in life and get those punches in, and keep moving forward, and make yourself stronger, and make yourself better, and make yourself more loving, or you can let it keep beating you down and control you.
That's right.
And for the
It's a
longest time,
choice.
yeah, my son, he let those things. He classified himself. Everything he did, every excuse if he did something wrong, it was always an excuse of his upbringing. What he had to deal with.
Right. Because he felt powerless, Anthony. He
Ex-
felt
e-
powerless.
exactly, exactly. He did not
And
know
you
how to
helped
handle
him,
those situations.
right. And you helped him reclaim his power.
Hmm.
We all have it. We're all sovereign beings. But if we're beaten down as a child, we lose a sense of that sovereignty.
Yeah, and that's what good mentors need to do. I guarantee there's kids out there in Chicago and Baltimore and in DC that are out there
Yeah.
hustling. That if you get a good mentor, a good person to go in there and say, "Hey, you're good enough. Hey, let me show you a different way of doing things. Let me show a different life that you could achieve. Anything you want in this world, you could achieve as
Yes.
long
Just
as
take
you."
that energy
Yeah,
that's headed toward the negative and put it toward what cool stuff you'd like to experience.
exactly. And a
Yeah.
lot of these kids, they just don't know better. And it
No, they
takes
don't. They
adults like
don't
my,
even know that's
yeah,
possible.
no, they don't. And it takes adults like yourself and myself and other, good adults out there to
All of us.
show these kids like there are other opportunities out here. This is not what these cards are not your only cards in your hand. You have other cards you could play.
Yeah, and we can do that in simple ways. And then I know you have something you want to share with everybody before we say goodbye, but I wanted to just tell a quick story. So, um, there's this walk that I do in the morning. I did it all winter every day, and it was kind of on the bluffs of the seashore. And I would see this older gentleman. He probably was in his early 90s, you know,
Hmm.
and he had his walker out, and he was doing the whole thing. It was probably like a 2 mile walk, and he was doing there and down and then turn around and come back. And every day he was out there, and he wasn't very tall, like maybe 5'7", 5'8", and he was kind of crouched over. And I remember the very first morning I saw him, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like he's out here, he's giving it his best, he's got his walker, he's not letting anything hold him back. And I was so inspired that when I, got close to him, I wished him a good morning. I said, "Good morning, sir." And I gave him a big smile. And I swear to you, he became 2 inches taller. It was just like perked right up, and there was a twinkle in his eye, and he's like surprised. And, that became our thing. And
Yeah,
I found myself looking for him. And I know it was happening for him too, because when he would see me, a few yards down,
yeah.
you could see he was already like, oh my goodness, I get to say good morning. And you know what ended up happening? I took a client out there one morning. I
Hmm.
coached this CEOs, and I took this one client out because he could never get his phone to stop. So it was like 6:30 in the morning. We're out doing this walk together, and we're doing his coaching session, and we pass this guy, and I do the same thing. And he's the kind of guy that never engages small talk with people. It's kind of a rule of thumb he has. And I keep telling him he's missing out on life.
Yeah,
And afterwards, he's like, wow. And I went, yeah, see the difference? Like a good morning. And so the moral of the story is talk to people, you
hmm,
know, shine your light, like be happy, share your happiness. Don't worry about whether they receive it or not.
yeah,
I didn't have any agenda as to whether I would have said good morning to him forever, even if he didn't respond, because
yes.
you do it for the joy of it, not for the payback, which is what you're doing.
Exactly, exactly. No, I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, putting a smile on someone's face, or just, I do
Right?
it. I do it in New York all the time, and I say hi to people just randomly as I'm walking
Yeah.
down the street in Manhattan. They kind of give me a sideways look and everything, but I keep doing it, because
You
it's
never
just something
know.
you never know. You never know who you're going to come across that may need that, you know,
Yeah.
good morning, may need that, hey, how you doing today? you know eh, we have a society right now that we're so isolated, and we don't want to talk about our feelings or help out each other. And so it could be that one person that is, teetering on the edge, and
Yes.
in that little sense of just saying nice words or doing a nice gesture could help that person for that day, give a different outlook
You
on what they're
just never
dealing with.
know. They could
You
be
never know.
like having the worst day of their life, and you just changed it.
Exactly. And it's all the small things, and people look at, okay, there's so much out there, so much issues out there, and I'm just one person. How I can't tackle this. And nobody's asking anyone to go out there and tackle every single problem. You know,
True.
we're just asking to go out there and
Shine your light.
do the little things. Yeah, shine the light, do the little things, and don't do it for recognition. Don't do it because you're streaming it online on YouTube or on Instagram. Do it because it's just nice to do good things for other people. Open a
Yeah,
door.
it builds everybody up. It
Exactly.
builds everybody up, including the one sending the love.
Exactly.
So before we go, I want you to, I know you have something you want to share with
Mhm.
everybody, but I have to ask you this question because I had a lot of people when I put out the campaign saying I was having you on my show. I got a lot of people ask me to ask this question, and that is, and if you can just like in 60 seconds, what's it been like for you to be in the CIA and a Secret Service and like to do all of these highly volatile kinds of things that you had to do?
So I would say this, the men and women in CIA and Secret Service are very honorable. There's a lot of things going on in the political
Yeah.
sense, the bureaucracy of it, but the men and women that I work with and served with are the most dedicated, honorable people. And you do see a lot of things. You do a lot of things that are stressful.
Yeah.
That you don't do it for notoriety. You don't do it for fame or anything like that. You do it because it's a sense of service. It was probably some of my best times working in the CIA and Secret Service, and also some of the worst times, the most stressful times. Uh,
Sure.
but it's a great balance. It was a great honor. It's a great honor to see things, to be part of
Honor.
history that um, you only see in history books or watching movies. Uh, but with that, the men and women in these agencies, and this also goes with the FBI and the border patrol, that are
All law
doing
enforcement,
so
right?
much work, and all law
Yeah.
enforcement. They're doing things to help, and at the end of the day, your heart is in the right place.
And it's a
Now,
sacrifice.
it is definitely sacrifice.
Doing
Now,
anything else you with your life besides putting it on the line.
exactly. But with that too, we're all human. So there's going to be mistakes. What happens with law enforcement? Do Are they perfect? No. Are their hearts in it? Yes. Do we put a
Mhm.
microscope on them and say, okay, you did wrong on all these aspects? Yeah, we do. And we come down hard. It's just like the government worker out there when I was in the CIA. I may not have all the answers, but I'm trying. And I'm trying to do my best. My heart is to protect people. And my
Yeah.
hat is off to all the law enforcements out there, all the government employees that are protecting our nation, are doing everything they can. The people I serve with, my hat's out there for you guys, because it's hard, especially now where all these agencies have just become so political. It's a
That's a
nightmare.
whole other show.
Yeah, it's a nightmare in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's a very precarious time. So um, there's definitely, I think, a big difference between who's boots on the ground, dedicating their life to protecting and taking care of people, and then who's calling the shots about
Yeah.
how that needs to play out. So that's a whole other show we should do.
Yeah, that is a whole nother show that we can,
Yeah,
and we could do a couple of segments into that,
yeah, we could.
because I still have a lot of friends over there in all agencies, and I feel for them.
I do
The
too.
place they're
God
working
bless
in,
them.
it's amazing that they're able to get anything done and protect this country.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. So I know you put together sort of like a checklist of things that people could choose from to
Yeah.
get involved and start some sort of mentoring. Um,
Mhm.
I'm going to have that available for everybody in the show notes, but what's the top one or two that you could just share?
So, like I said earlier, people are kind of thinking, what can I do, and how can I make an impact? And I don't have a lot of time, and so it kind of ties in with 12 things that I generally look at, and I would say 75% of these things I've already done. And the top one is probably join your local Big Brother, Big Sister mentoring
Yeah.
program. People, when I was growing up, I heard about it, and then somehow it kind of died down, but it's still there. And it's a program that's in every inner city, and all it is matching up with other kids that need parental help. Kids that have parents but they need the additional support. That is
Sure.
one. The other one is volunteering as a coach.
Yes.
I did that personally,
Like
and I had
sports, some
sports,
sports.
soccer,
Hmm.
football, baseball, whatever it may be, and do it in your inner cities and volunteer. There you're trying to mold kids into working as a team, working together.
Yeah.
That was probably one of my best highlights. And that's how I actually got really close with my son, my adopted son, because I coached his flag football team for 2 years
See?
straight. Yeah, and I did bench him a couple of times because he did, mouth off, to the coach, or to myself, but it helped him out. It taught him some stuff. The other thing I really want to concentrate on is, volunteering in your inner city school programs.
Yes.
That is a foundation. A lot of people think they can't, but they can. You go to any public school website, you go to Baltimore, anywhere, and just type in and see what you can volunteer in. You can volunteer in every aspect. You volunteer when there are schools coming in to be a school crossing guard or to
Just,
help out during lunchtime. I mean,
yeah, just that positive, hey, how you doing? Connect with the kid.
exactly. So those would be my
Yeah.
top three things, and that's where we're taking our work and what we're trying to do and going to where the kids are at and getting them
Nice.
involved. So, and there's a couple other things. There's about 9 other things in there, but those would be my top three.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely make sure those go in the show notes. And I'm on every podcast platform from Spotify and SoundCloud and iTunes and YouTube and everywhere. So we'll get that out. And I think what I'll do is I'll shoot it out in an email campaign to my database too. There's probably about 25,000 people in there. So we'll get it out the door.
Yeah, and that's where you start. I mean, it takes it's like that pebble you throw into the big lake. That little ripple. It has a little ripple effect. Keeps going,
Yeah.
going, going. But it takes that small little pebble to start that ripple effect, and that's what it is.
Well, you're the pebble. So thank
Yeah,
you for being here. We're way over time and my neighbors are talking and
not a problem.
I'm
Thank you so
like
much.
I'm this nomad working remotely, so it's impossible to control the environment. So I just had to go, I can't control the environment. If the
Exactly.
lighting's good, it's good. If I have people talking in the backyard, what am I going to do?
You got to go
So
with it.
you got to go with it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anthony. You're the
Thank you,
best.
Deborah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. And I'll have you back, okay?
Okay. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
sounds good. Yeah. And everybody, remember, share this with your friends, subscribe, drop a review. It really helps build the channel. And most importantly, stay aligned, stay awake, and stay alert.